Yeah, hi.
Okay, you're good to start.
Well, good evening, everybody. I am Martin Ducat. I'm the co-chair of the Waterfront Parks and Environment Committee. It's my pleasure and honor to be that. Leslie is going to be a few minutes late. Her daughter had to go to softball practice, and some things are just more important. We have an agenda that's really designed to inform. I don't know if there are any letters that will come out of this agenda, but be that as it may. I wonder if we should briefly introduce ourselves. Is this something we don't usually do that? And I think Josephine, how long have you been on our committee?
Since last month.
Yeah, so you're a newbie, and I think maybe for you we should introduce ourselves. I already have, so why don't Gwen, you go?
Yep. Hi, I'm Gwen Billig, and I've been on the committee for a while.
A long while. Matt?
Hey, Josephine, good to see you. Yeah, Matt Green here. I mean, we know each other, but nice to see you on the committee.
Sally?
Hi, Josephine. Sally Greenspan. I live in Chelsea, and I've been a member of this committee for, I think, 4 or 5 years. Welcome.
A century and a half. Tina?
Yes, you can see Tina DeFelicio Antonio. I've been on this committee probably 5 years or something like that. Yikes, time flies. And every time we had new people come on board, it's sad to see old people leave, going to another committee, but new people coming on board. And Josephine, you've been really fun. So I'm glad you're a part of our committee. In addition to being smart, we don't have to say that. We know that already.
Lowell?
I'm Lowell Kern. I've been on this committee for over a decade.
Yeah. Roberta?
Hi, Roberta Barnett. I've been on the committee here for the past 2 years.
Good to have you. Alice?
Hi, Alice. I'm also on the Transportation Committee, and I have been on this committee now 2 years.
And Brad, who's been on the committee for more than 2 years?
Good evening, everybody. Brad Pasquarella. I live in Chelsea. I've been on the board, I think, since Martin joined. So, Martin, we're over 10 years.
Decades.
Yeah.
Now I want to be sure that I get everybody. Jennifer, I didn't call yet.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Cook. I'm in Chelsea, and I've been on the board for 2 years now.
And I didn't say how long I've been on. I've been on since 2010 or so, and basically on the committee since then. So that's 13 years, isn't it? Long time. I didn't call out the people who are going to speak. I don't think I missed any committee members. And the people who are going to speak will get an opportunity to present themselves as we go through it. We thought it would be a good idea to get an update from Parks. We haven't had Parks speak with us. I don't see Paul. Is he here? Yeah, he is. I see his, what is it that we're called, the squares? Are you going to be speaking with Max, or is he not here, Paul?
Max is actually on another community board meeting, and he may jump in. But I've had we had a meeting this afternoon to get an update on Capitol. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Max used to work in Capitol, so now as deputy chief of staff, he's like totally plugged in. So we have a lot of good information for you today.
And you take it away, will you? Give us an overview of what's been going on. I think we're particularly interested in Hell's Kitchen Park. We're interested in the dog run at Chelsea Park. We're interested in the repaving of the track at Chelsea Park, and is that at DeWitt Clinton as well, and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of, you'll be very, very pleased. There, as you described, there are a number of projects that are ongoing in capital, and they're all moving along. And they're on schedule too. I want you to be aware of that. Sometimes there are delays because they have to get another permit, or they may have to wait for supplies or things like that, supply chain issues, but everything is moving along. So I can talk about Hell's Kitchen since everybody's concerned about that. So it is on schedule, and my understanding it's supposed to be a 3 to 4 month project, so it should really be completed by the summer. By the end of the summer. They're going to start paving. My notes say on Friday. That means tomorrow. I don't know if the smoke conditions are going to hold that up, but they're going to start paving tomorrow, and then after they pour the asphalt, that's going to have to cure for about a month. So there'll be a period of slowdown, after that happens, and then they can proceed to do the sports coating for the basketball court for the court work. So we hopefully there'll be a late July completion on that. Also, there were 2 trees that also were planted with the gardeners. We know that the serviceberry is struggling, so we're going to see how that does. I looked at it today. It does look poorly, so if it doesn't really survive, it'll have to be replaced by the contractor. And the cherry tree that's there looks fine. And also, if you looked at 47th Street, they've also done some repaving, and they've also created some new tree pits there as well. So the work is moving along. So just bear that in mind. At the Chelsea Field, also on schedule. And if you looked this week and last week, you saw them putting down the new green turf. What they've been doing this week largely is they do an infill. They used to use crumb rubber. Now I think they're using sand or some other kind of material, so the little blades of grass will stand up. So that was going on this week. The asphalt for the track was one of the first things that actually went down at that location. So that's been in place for a while. And so that's actually done. So they're continuing. And that's also on schedule for July completion. So it looks like July is going to be a very, very busy month for bringing these projects online. Let's see. The other project at Chelsea is the basketball court and the fitness center. And it's also on schedule. It may look like there are things that were delayed, but it's not. It's just, once again, some of these things take time, and we're dealing with some punch list items that we have to address. But looks like perhaps early July would be the opening time for that one as well. So moving along. So the most exciting thing I know the community board is excited about probably is the dog run, and it's in place. It's likely to open with the fitness center, the basketball court and the fitness center. It has a number of unique features that don't always go with dog runs right away. So it does have water access. They put in a water spigot about 2 weeks ago. There are some benches and planters. One of the reasons why it can't open right away is because of the access point, which it basically goes through the construction area where the basketball court is. So it's just safer and simpler to wait till they can both open together. Everybody's very proud. This was a relatively inexpensive project, and it was done in-house by our in-house staff.
Great.
So that's terrific. Now, some other issues. Let's see. Matthews Palmer. I know that there's a lot of concerns about Matthews Palmer Playground. Some people have been very, very vocal about that. The good news is, let's see, the work we think is going to resume next week. I know that there was a question about the co-op board if they were able to continue. Let me say it that way. But it looks like they're going to resume work next week. And anybody who was concerned about damage to the basketball court, the buildings contractor will pay for the damage or repair the damage to the basketball court. So that's going to be addressed as well. And the other thing I have news about is Penn South. There's going to be a community meeting on June 15th. Help us plan the renovation of Penn South Playground. That's going to be at the Penn South Community Room 8A. And people should register in advance. I don't know if you've seen the flyer. I will share it with the district manager, because I guess you have to register in advance.
Excuse me, am I the only one that's hearing a game? Someone playing a game, or is it just me?
I hear
I
nothing.
don't hear anything, Marty. I don't know if anyone else, I don't hear anything.
Okay, something's wrong with my machine. Beg your pardon. Sorry,
Okay.
Paul.
Anyway, so yeah, we're going full steam ahead with the planning and the completion of our playground projects. And so that is the brief, and I hope you will agree, positive status update on the parks and playgrounds. Oh, and just to comment, there is no track work going on over at DeWitt. DeWitt does not have a track.
My bad.
And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take questions.
I have one about Matthew Palmer's. You were talking about the co-op board. That's the park with the mural, is it not?
That is correct.
And that's what you're talking about?
That is correct. And the mural, as I understand it, is no more. And the co-op, it's become a very tangled web. But my understanding is that the mural is not going to proceed, and that the co-op building is dealing with repairs to their wall. And that's what the delay has been. And I think that there have been, for whatever reasons, they've proceeded with fits and starts. They're going to resume again. And so that's scheduled to start next week.
I'm going to turn it over to Lowell. Oh, wait a minute. Before Lowell speaks, I'm going to acknowledge that Leslie has come, our co-chair has come. Welcome. And now Lowell.
I've actually got two questions now. The first one, why is Parks holding a separate community meeting about the Penn South Playground instead of doing it through this committee, which is the way it's always been done in the past? And second of all, who was involved in the decision to abandon the mural at Matthews Palmer? Because there was, so much work done to preserve that mural. Who was involved in the decision to just abandon it?
So that's a question I have to. Well, as you may, I don't know if you're aware that is not a Parks Department mural. So, but I really don't have an immediate answer to that question. But the meeting that's happening about Penn South, we always have scoping meetings or focus meetings with the community. I don't want to give them the wrong name, but we always have meetings with the potential users of the property, just to get some ideas. It's not about anything about them approving anything, or we just want to know, what they think it should look like. That kind of, it's not, I don't believe this is going to lock the community board out in any way. This is, I think, the usual community meeting we have for all of our capital projects, and especially for playgrounds.
Those are usually done through this committee in the first instance.
Okay, well, I will share the flyer with you, and I will refer the larger question also to Steve Simon, because I haven't got another answer, more clarification for you than that.
Lowell, I was wondering about that also, and I don't think that Parks has yet got a plan. I think they're just requesting. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And those scoping meetings, Marty, have always been done through this committee in the first instance. As you know, Marty, I co-chaired this committee.
Oh no, I'm not contradicting.
I chaired the board. I know how this has worked in the past. And for Parks to be doing this outside of the community board is a change in process.
I will refer your concern to Steve. Is there anything else, or?
Yeah, you had two questions, Lowell.
My second one was about the mural, but it's not Paul seems to say that, he doesn't know what happened there because it's not a Parks mural. I know it's not a Parks mural because that's why Parks didn't want to pay to restore the mural, and that's why it fell on the co-op board to do it. But I don't know who was involved in a decision to just abandon that mural because it certainly didn't come through this committee.
It didn't come from the committee.
And this committee has worked for years now to try and preserve that mural.
Again, this is a question that I will share with Steve.
And when might we get some answers?
I will.
Especially since they're supposed to start next week with regard to, tearing down that, fixing the wall, which will destroy the mural permanently.
I understand. I understand your concern. I'm going to share this. These two questions with Steve. I can assure you before your meeting is over.
Anything else, Lo?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
I know that let's do this in public together. I know that you have been involved with the process of scoping parks a great deal. My recollection is that the committee usually have seen some sort of preliminary architectural drawings. I would want to know if those kinds of drawings already exist.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. I don't want to refer to the meeting that I described as a scoping meeting. It's a community meeting. So it's, maybe a brainstorming, talking about what people want to see in the playground. I want to be very, very clear because scoping is something that's very, very specific. And I don't think that that's quite what this is. So I just want to be clear about that.
And as far as you know, Paul, there are no renderings of any kind yet.
Nothing has been shared with me, no.
So we look forward to the response that you get from Steve.
Absolutely.
Matt.
Thanks, Marty. If I could just maybe weigh in just a little bit on the mural and the planning for the in Penn South. So with Penn South, so Paul, I mean, this sounds like it's a community charrette, which I think had been done. I know it was done on 20th Street Park in Chelsea, and then also planning for the passive open space at 48th and 10th Avenues. There was a community charrette that was done at a local high school, but that still runs parallel or just right after. Once that happens, you all then come to the community board and you present sort of all the ideas that were sort of captured at that meeting. So if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, Paul, it sounds like it's the charrette that's happening, right?
I think it's fair to say that, yes. That's my sense of what it is, yes.
Got it. And then just a recommendation about the mural. I mean, we may want to touch base with the Hell's Kitchen Commons and the Block Association there. I think there's been a long understanding that that mural was not going to be saved as part of the facade work. There was an effort underway to raise money to restore and put back as much as possible the original mural using the original paints with the original artist. And the community had a really hard time raising funds to do that. It's been some time since I've heard anything about that fundraiser, but I think it might be a good idea for us to maybe circle back and find out sort of what is the next step to put the mural back in place, because I know that Block Association was working really hard to raise money to do that, and they connected with the artist or the family of the artist, and they got the original colors and the paints to put that mural back up. But I think there was an understanding that they weren't going to be able to save it with that facade, with the facade work that needed to happen. But my question, Paul, and thanks for these updates. Do you have like an update on the passive space at 48th and 10th? And are you all still involved in that open space design? Just any updates you might be able to share?
I don't have an update. I do know that it's still going to go ahead. That is for sure. I don't have an update this evening, but if you need information, I'll be very happy to get some more for you. I mean, we maintain it. I mean, we are actively involved in. We keep the weeds down when there's graffiti. We attack the graffiti. So we are maintaining it as a parks property that's coming down the pike.
Okay, there is a almost weekly, there's a community group that picks up litter around the chain link fence. They meet like almost every Sunday. It's the Litter Legion. They've done a really great job, but it would be great to get an update on what's going on with that space when you have one.
Absolutely.
Matt, does that space have a name? Is that the canoe?
No, I know another canoe, which is down on 9th and
DEP site.
9th Street. But
Right.
that's the DEP shaft site. Yeah, that's right. There's no official name for that site yet.
It's the one, Marty, it's the one, caddy corner across the street and over from Hell's Kitchen Park. And there's also going to be affordable housing, if I'm not wrong, on that same, not the same site, but part of that.
The rail track.
Yeah,
Yes.
Is this the DEP site?
correct.
Okay. Got it. And so the question, from my mind, Matt, help me out. The question on the DEP site, which is a relatively large space, is what's happening? What's Parks doing?
Timing. Yeah, just with I'm just curious if there's an update on the timing of that.
I'm curious as well. The last I tuned in on it, it was in part dependent on the building that was going to occur behind it. I hope that's not holding it up, but I bet it is. Anything else, Matt?
No, thank you. That was it.
Thank you, Matt. Brad.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah, the DEP site, we went through all the design that was all approved, and then the affordable housing was going to have the bathrooms. So I'm hoping, as you, Marty, that's not holding us up to get this thing going. My question is, first, hopefully Steve's doing well. I heard we talked about him already. Is there planned artwork for some of these basketball courts that have come by us, where they're going to put design into the asphalt, into the area? Curious.
So that's an interesting question. I don't know what's going to happen over at Hell's Kitchen. We should ask that question. I know that the over at Chelsea, it's a standard basketball court. It's just I believe it's a blue and green basketball court, just a standard.
Anything else, Brad? Brad, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that they were saying before. There was a fundraiser to do the mural, and obviously they just didn't get enough to get it done. And I think it's something we should talk to our council member Bodger about and see where that's at. But there was no doubt to repair the building, they had to take it all down. So, and it's been sitting there for so long, we're not even getting the park. So I appreciate the artwork, but I'm glad work's being done so the park could come back.
Committee members, other questions for Parks, for Paul?
Marty, I have a few questions. I just wanted to wait till the membership went through. Paul, I want to go back to Matthews Palmer. I agree with Brad. That has been this is good news, actually very surprising news. That has been legal battles and fights for years. And that scaffolding has been there, and it's been cordoned off to children. And there's been a lot of drug use and people sleeping under there. So that, as you know, has been a huge sore point in our neighborhood. So I'm actually surprised when you say work is starting next week. Can you just give me just a little more detail on what is going on, the work and timelines? And because this is the first update I'm hearing on that.
Well, I would tell you that I know about the legal wrangling as well, that it's been going back and forth. I mean, I was just told this afternoon before I came to this meeting that the work was that there was an anticipation that you would be concerned about that. And so, Steve just said to me, let them know that the work is supposed to resume next week. And that's what I have on that. If you need a timeline, once again, I will press him for more information along with the other questions.
Okay, we'll definitely follow up. But when you say work, that building and the owner, they refused to do it for so many years, and then they said they couldn't, they didn't have the money.
Yes.
So when you say work is gonna be done, like work to actually fix it and make it safe, or when you say
Well,
work,
I
I
don't-
didn't know what you meant.
That's a very good point. Well, I'm not really, you know, I mean, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an architect. I don't know exactly what they were actually doing. I mean, other than quote repairing the wall. So I don't know what stage they actually were at. So when I go back to Steve, I will find out, you know, a little bit more about the details of what they're actually going to commence next week.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna hop around. So my second question is, and I'm sorry I missed it, guys, and I apologize. I was dropping off my daughter at softball practice. Indoor air quality is bad, so it's indoor tonight. But when was Hell's Kitchen Park? I know I did get the tail end about the sports coding and then the 1 month curing, but what did you say? I'm sorry, you said about July, we're expecting that to be open?
That's
Okay.
about, yeah, that's correct. That's about the time of the completion. Yes, late July.
Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure I got that right. And then the next thing was, I'm gonna jump to our fun dog run in Chelsea. There was a note we heard, and it was in our letter as a strong recommendation for separate spots for small dogs, a separation for small dogs and for big dogs. And that was in our letter. And I wanted to know, I think I saw something that was not going to happen, but it didn't, I don't think it came to us officially. I was wondering what the status of that was and if we can revisit it. So we do have the separation of small dogs, big dogs.
I'll ask about that as well.
Because I think that was a very big ask also from the NYCHA residents who live right there and who are also going to frequent this dog park.
Yeah, small run.
And I think, and I just want to say, I want to follow up on Matt, thank you so much. The DEP site, we did, and what Brad said, we did all the planning, and you know, we maybe next month we can schedule an official update on just that. That might be helpful, but we can get back to you on that. Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
So the question I have for Leslie and the rest of the committee, with Paul presumably giving us some feedback in the next couple of days, you'll send it to Janine. Shouldn't we then immediately send it to the committee members? I think the answer to that is yes. I'd like to see that happen. Is that possible, Janine? I'm sure it is.
Yeah, that's possible. You can send that around.
So we're looking forward to your feedback, Paul, and we'll make sure the committee receives copies of it.
Absolutely.
Marty, it's Brad. I have a couple more. What's happening with the conversion of the handball courts to the pickleball courts? Has that died? I haven't heard anything about it.
That's at Chelsea Park.
Yeah. Is anything happening with that?
I hadn't heard about a conversion of the handball to pickleball. I think pickleball is being incorporated into the new. You're talking about Hell's Kitchen, is that correct? The question is, yeah. So my understanding is that part of the design of that's actually going on right now, part of that court area is actually going to be for pickleball. So it's going to be
Paul. There was a whole presentation here. They were taking some of the handball courts and making them into pickleball, and then also squash. Wasn't that correct, Marty?
No, I don't think that's quite right. At least not the way I remember it. What I remember is for handball courts, there was going to be pickleball design incorporated in the ground, so that people could set up pickleball on a handball court. There was a long discussion between this committee and Hudson Guild about squash courts, and there was a squash association that they were partnering with at Chelsea Park, and 3 handball courts were going to be converted to squash courts. And I heard something a month or so ago about that falling through because there wasn't, I don't know. I think we need an update on that, but I think that was put on hold. I think they're two separate things you're talking about. One is the design on handball courts so that pickleball can be set up, and the other is the possibility of squash courts at Chelsea Park.
Yes, I remember the squash courts at Chelsea, and I remember that being something that Hudson Guild was going to be involved in. And I know the gentleman that I met probably 2 years ago now is no longer involved with Hudson Guild, so that may be a contributing factor with that project changing. And I believe the location that the squash courts are going to be on is actually where the new dog run is going to be. And as far as Hell's Kitchen with the pickleball courts, I had never heard that they were going to be part of the handball courts. I heard that they were going to be lined on the basketball courts, in that area with the basketball courts, part pickleball, part basketball.
So Paul, it'd be great just to get an update. And Marty, yes, you're correct.
Clarification.
Share. I got it a little blurred, but thank you, Marty. Yes, some clarification on that. And then obviously we are also the environmental committee. And we continue to bring up environmental questions to all parks when the design, and we are continually told, sorry, can't do it. Sorry, we can't do permeable. Sorry, we can't do solar. Sorry, we can't do proper runoff. Sorry, we can't do wind. Sorry, we can't do new LED. I'm just wondering, what is the initiative, especially with this new Project Yes going on? What role Parks is having on getting these parks to be environmentally green?
And that's especially so for whatever is going to happen with Penn South Park.
Okay, so once again, thinking along environmental lines, I can't make a comment. I have no information about Penn South, but what I will tell you is that as sports lights are upgraded and improved, we do convert them to LED. And I think so just bear that in mind. So for example, several years ago, we actually did that to the sports lighting over to Wood Clinton. It was a major operation, and those are actually, energy efficient lights that do go in. I think, and once again, this is an uninformed observation, but it appears that it's limited by funding. We can't do all of them all at once. So as we go along, we try to incorporate what we can. And so I know that that's true of sports lighting as an example.
But Paul, I would like you to ask Steve if they could give us, I know you guys have a mandate, and I'm wondering what the environmental mandate is.
Okay.
Because we do have discretionary funding. And if there's some things we could help you and Steve ask for, we ask the city for, but there could be 3 or 4 things that is the initiative.
Okay.
And I think it's time the Parks Department start getting into more of this. We demanded from, on the west side from our park there, we demanded in our real estate and all of that work. We should be getting it out of the Parks Department also. So we'd like to help in that framework, and we'd like to know, I'm sure there's initiative of things you're trying to achieve. We'd love to be a part of that.
Okay. I will pursue that question as well.
And to add, Paul, I'm sorry, Candace couldn't be on the meeting tonight. She apologizes. She's in transit, but she also sent something which, to follow up on Brad, she wanted to know maybe next month we can have an update on the different materials that you guys are using for your tree pits and how they absorb water. And I think that kind of goes in that same vein.
Not to diminish any of the specifics that you've heard, I want to pick up on what Brad said and reemphasize it. It's how can we help you advocate for these kinds of environmental issues, and eventually, if sooner rather than later, get them.
Okay, and I'm pleased to hear that question. Great.
We want to help, Paul. You guys are doing well. You're rolling out parks is what we like to see.
Now all we need is money. Thank you, Paul. I always appreciate your your presentations. And if no other committee member has another question, we'll move on to, we've been talking about dog runs a lot in this committee, haven't we?
Marty, sorry,
Marty,
there's Jordan's on attendees. I'm going to bring him over.
Oh, a public member, please do.
Yep.
And Brad, take your hand down if you don't have another question, please.
I got just one more thing regarding the mural. So the mural was there. The mural is coming down.
Or
Is
down.
it another thought instead of putting back what was there, that maybe there's some other artist that wants to do it on their dime to put something there? Maybe it's different, but it's a great spot for art, and maybe that's something to consider. And it could be a much more inexpensive way to get something done. Something we consider. We can't have a closed mind on, we want that exact thing back. Maybe there's an artist out there that wants to self-fund it and put something up.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, Jordan.
Hey everyone, Jordan Feiner from Councilmember Botcher's team. I wanted to just give 2 points of clarity. Sorry, I can't turn my camera on. I'm actively in a car going up to Ithaca, but I wouldn't miss this meeting for anything. So nice to be with you all.
Glad to be driving with you.
Wanted to just give 2 quick points of update. One on that visioning meeting that Paul mentioned for Penn South Playground. So that's from my experience and my recollection, what Matt mentioned earlier. This is a visioning meeting. So in terms of a visioning meeting, that's Parks meeting with local residents to sort of come up with what we might want to see in the park before any design is formalized. And then once that design is formalized, obviously going to this committee, discussing it further. So I know Matt mentioned one that we did in a high school cafeteria that was up at the Urban Assembly Gateway School on 51st Street, I believe, for this DEP shaft site that we were talking about. So that's what this is. Obviously, it's not going to be finalized. It'll still come to the community board and so forth there. So I wanted to provide some more clarity. The other thing I wanted to sort of clarify on is at Matthews Palmer, we've been in touch with the Block Association here, as well as the ownership team at the HDFC where that scaffolding is. A little more clarity. Yes, they did run out of money. They had an open apartment that ended up being sold recently. So they were able to get more money to finish up this work. I actually had a conversation with the HDFC today after hearing the update from Parks that the work was going to continue. They confirmed hopefully next week. There's a lip at the roof of the building that needs to be completed before the scaffolding can come down. That's what they're going to be working on. And then, they're going to be checking the wall, making sure the stucco is all fine. There aren't any issues with the brickwork or anything like that. So, hopefully we should be seeing the scaffolding coming down before too long. I was told, quote, if there are no curveballs. So we're hoping for no curveballs so we can get this scaffolding down soon and we can get these basketball courts back that have been gone for a while. And also, no one's abandoning this mural. We've had meetings with the mural team here, but I think just in terms of what the Block Association and what the community at large around Matthews Palmer is interested in is getting this scaffolding down, getting these basketball courts back, and then we can work on getting this mural back. But definitely no one is abandoning that. So I wanted to provide a little more context on this.
Would you talk a little, Jordan, about the suggestion that I just heard Brad make? I think there's been a lot of concern that the original mural be restored. It had its own worth, and he's saying, Brad is saying, as I heard him, if funding becomes an issue, then and only then can we start to talk about something that would be a substitute for it. What's your take, Jordan?
Yeah, so, I obviously what the community would want in terms of this mural, whether restoration of the current mural or a completely new mural, I think we want to see something local from the community. I haven't had too in-depth conversations with the council member about this, so I don't want to, put my foot in my mouth, but we definitely want to, help to preserve what we can, if anything can be, or if we can't, definitely have something there that's local that the community can be proud of.
I'm gonna make a bad joke. It could be him standing inside of a dog park. I mean, that would be funny.
In
That's
my
a bad
opinion,
joke,
there is
but
no
it's a
such thing as
joke.
a bad joke, Brad. So, I'll bring back a mural of the council member surrounded by dogs in a dog park on that wall, and I'm sure he'll be thrilled about that.
Thrilled with it. No, but when the artist came and presented all the colors and what it was going to be a brand new remake of the mural. And I'm saying, look, I think we need to be open to other things if that's not possible. That's all I'd like to say. And it could be more, we don't need another, if it was the Mona Lisa and now it's a fake Mona Lisa, if the thing's completely gone, then I think we can consider a lot of things.
For sure.
With sponsorship.
Thanks, Brad. And Brad, you were right. It was a bad joke. Anybody else on the parks issues? I'm sorry, Brad. I shouldn't have said that in public. My bad.
It's fine, Marty. I totally get
it. All right. Thank you very much, Paul, and appreciate your having been here. You're welcome to stay and listen to a dog park conversation. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys from Astor's.
Thank you.
Paul, no ask for more labor and trucks. That's very rare of you. Usually you say something.
We always need more. That's a standing request. We always need more.
I'm surprised you just didn't say it tonight. All right.
Well, I don't think we're right unless I'm going to be corrected by the committee. I don't think we're writing a letter on this. This was intended as an update. If anybody sees the need to memorialize what we just heard, as opposed to waiting for the next time I don't see a need for a letter. I'm just saying that. If anybody disagrees with me, then we'll talk about it. Hearing no disagreement, let's talk to Astros.
Thanks, Marty. Despite what my name says in the meeting, I'm Mike Mellinger. I'm here with Ryan Brodsky, and for some reason my link didn't have any video. So he sent me his, and lo and behold, you now have two of us. So apologize for that confusion.
Another bad joke.
So thanks for including us. For those that aren't aware, Astro's Community Dog Run is located on the corner of 39th and 10th Avenue, and it is graciously available due to the Port Authority letting us use some land there right next to the bus ramps that lead into the Lincoln Tunnel. Due to the upcoming construction project for the new Port Authority bus terminal, we will be losing our space as of, at least right now, the end of this calendar year. We may get a few more months into 24, but we're not sure on that. And so we are desperately searching for a new home for our members. We have over 200 registered members, and probably even more dogs than that, because we have multi-dog families at the park. We kind of serve a wide area from people that come down from as high as the high 40s and low 50s in Hell's Kitchen, all the way up from the high 20s and stuff down in kind of Hudson Yards, Chelsea area. We were invited today, and again, I appreciate you guys including us in your conversations to kind of just give you an update. And so a couple of months ago in April, Ryan and I had a preliminary meeting with Marty and Leslie and a few other people on CB4 just to make them aware of the situation and where we were at. There's been a lot of brainstorming going on, and so I want to say how grateful we are. From that, I received a call earlier in the week from Jordan, who's also on the call. Eric Botcher's office has been amazing at trying to partner with us. They've tried to basically raise the flag and see if there's any possibility of us finding some space in the Bella Abzug Park area that unfortunately today still has no accommodation for dogs, despite all the buildings going up around it. I also received a call from Michael Lavery at the Port Authority. They continue as well to try and consider alternate Port Authority land that may be underutilized or might able to be repurposed as a dog run. Nothing on either end that anyone's been able to confirm. And I also know that there's been some discussions about some kind of what would appear to be abandoned parts of land within the Hudson Yards kind of Hell's Kitchen area that might serve as a temporary home for some dogs and their happy owners. But at this point, we have a lot of, like, again, partners in the community helping us. But at this point, we don't have any firm leads or anything that looks promising so far as a new location for us to migrate into when we lose our land at the end of the year. I also want to give my partner in crime, Ryan, the other Ryan, a chance to chime in if there's anything he thinks I might have missed.
No, I don't really have anything to add. I mean, it's it's a difficult issue. I mean, finding an apartment in New York City is hard. Finding a piece of land for a dog run is even harder. We've reached out to our membership base to help us, but they're busy New Yorkers. It's been a difficult endeavor. And so yeah, I don't have much more to add than that we're working on it.
I don't know if anyone else on the call here has any other thoughts or ideas or potentially updates that maybe we aren't aware of, but we definitely, again, appreciate your partnership in helping us to find a new home.
I open it to you, ladies and gentlemen.
So I can give a little bit of background too, Marty, if it's okay. And thank you, Ryan and Mike, for coming on again. You guys said, just to let the committee know, we did a little bit of a briefing with Astro's dog run weeks ago. And since that briefing, we promised to follow up, and we did. And we were asking around a bit on, why is the Port Authority giving them this hard end of year deadline when there is no construction in the near future going on for this Port Authority project? There was thoughts that maybe they had to park some mechanical equipment or construction equipment there. But even that area of Port Authority construction is nowhere in our near future as far as being overhauled. So we kind of called around, and we think I don't want to say it's an artificial deadline. I wouldn't want to say that, but I think it was just a deadline made as far as a deadline. So two things. One, I think we would go to Port Authority and advocate for them to, if they are going to close it, let's get a real deadline. When you really need the space, then let's close it. Let's not just, put something on the calendar, a red mark on the calendar, and move on, which it very well may be used. I think that's why I'm leading up to maybe possible letter. Number two, if they are going to close or they need that Astro's dog run space, that we can request that they provide a temporary space elsewhere. This is a very big project. They have tons of land, or when I say tons, everything is relative, but lots of land. From my understanding, and I will double check on this, the reason why that dog park is there in the first place was an agreement with the community years back on the Port Authority giving that land in exchange for other, certain building and uses. So I think they should still stick to that if that is the case. And third, am I on 3 or 4? Maybe I'm on 4. But we should, and this is just to put a stake in the ground. This is a very long project, the Port Authority project. That Mike, you brought up a very good point that Bella Abzug has no place for a dog run. I think it's very surprising considering all of the new tenants that are in there. That is a grave oversight, and I think we've mentioned that to them informally, not in committee, but informally. That I do think that we put down that we would like them, Port Authority, when I say them, to incorporate a dog run space in there. They have a couple of acres of land that they are going to develop for green spaces. Not exclusively green spaces, but they will have some land that would be Though years down the road, we want to at least put it in writing now to get it on the radar. But anyway, I just want to get the committee up to date on where we were with that. And I think we can be, at least ask Port Authority some questions, be a little bit more proactive, and hopefully secure a spot for Astros. So through the Port Authority, so they don't have to, be without, or there might be an interim where there's no dog run, but at least, it could be a short bridge.
Right. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, I did get a call. I thought it was a little bit out of the blue from Michael Lavery this week, and I pressed him for timelines as well. And he said he couldn't commit to anything, but he would hopefully be able to get back to me shortly. Didn't really define what that meant. So perhaps they are feeling some pressure from others on, to your point, Leslie, why the timeline that they've given us. Initially, it was end of summer, and now it's end of year. But even Jerry Lindenmeyer, the director of the Lincoln Tunnel, who I think kind of is really connected with that space, he said that, perhaps into 24 we could spill over there as well. And I think for our purposes, we're just trying to understand the duration that we have relative to maintenance improvements that we would incur ourselves and move towards. But obviously that wouldn't be prudent if the park is closing soon. That would be wasted time and money. So but again, we very much appreciate all of your partnership and help on this.
So that leads to, for me, some complications. I was going to say, before you said maintenance improvements, I was going to ask you how much advance time you need. How much headway does the Port Authority have to give you before you get, I was going to say evicted, displaced?
Well, the latest that we've heard directly from Michael and team is that we have till the end of this calendar year.
That's not what I'm asking.
Give us a 30-day notice prior to the final eviction, so to speak, where they might lock the gate and prevent entry. But and they did indicate that deadline may expand into 24. But again, nothing has been confirmed. What we have to go off of right now is December 31st of this year with the confirmation of 30 days in advance of that need to vacate.
And if December 31st passes, you would be okay with a month-to-month situation?
Yeah, I think we definitely would. I think just like everyone here probably has the same experience with most parks in the area. They're much more heavily used in the spring through fall than they are in the winter months. But we still have a lot of dedicated dog owners that are there, myself and Ryan included, that bring our dogs several times a day during the winter. It's kind of like our dog's backyard, and frankly, safer for them and better for the city streets to not have them using the city streets as toilets. So,
were you talking about any kind of serious money in terms of maintenance?
No, we ask for a very small membership donation when members join, and that helps us. Basically, we're self-funding in that regard. The Port Authority gives us the land and has helped with some overall structural stuff as needed, but by and large within the park, plants, hoses, rakes, Ryan and I were and our advisory board were looking to add additional gravel. Our gravel that we have in there is kind of worn down, and we thought for this year we had all plans to do that. And then obviously with the notice of need to vacate, it felt like it would be spending money to only make improvements for a matter of months that didn't seem worth it. So we canceled those plans, and everything for that has been on hold. But to your point, Marty, obviously, if we had a better sense of we have another year at the park or something, that might encourage a bit more investment to continue in that 12-month period.
Gravel is $300.
Yeah.
About.
I'm not exactly sure. Ryan, maybe you have a better quote on that. I think we had the square footage and we were about to start chopping bids when we got the kind of the kiss of death about the pending closure, and we kind of pulled the plug on further efforts in that area.
Leslie, you were thinking about a letter?
Yeah, well, the reason why I wanted to put this on bring them back, or at least from the briefing to committee, is because I wanted to get something on the record and a letter, just so we can start working with Port Authority and tell them that this is really important to us. And, you know, they worked with us well before on this, and we just expect it to continue. And I think that the guys at Astros could use, you know, the community board's help with that, as far as maybe, you know, the go-betweens. And because if they're telling them one date, why is that date there? And maybe we can kind of, you know, backfill some stuff here. If that's okay with the committee, but you know, I can't make the motion, but if someone wants to, that would be great. Does that work well for you, for Ryan and Mike? Is that okay? Or
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to make a motion that we write a letter and advocate to the Port Authority, outlining, Leslie, what you were saying, with some short-term and long-term goals, figuring out what a real possible date is for when they need to be out of the space, but then in the interim, have their help looking for an alternative space. But then more long-term, when there is sort of a better idea of what the green space will look like, you know, can there be space used more permanently for a dog park for future uses? So, yeah, I think it's a good idea, and that would be my motion.
I'll second it.
great. Great. Any other points anyone wants to make? I can write it, but is any other point people want to make that we should definitely include?
Are there any objections to the letter?
Leslie, I'm sure you're, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead, Brad.
I'm sure like we always do, we're gonna say, if you're gonna take it away, we need a replacement spot.
Exactly.
It's not like, I knew you would write that letter. I just wanted to say, thank you.
No, that's good. No, absolutely. I think that's the point we were trying to make, Brad, with, you know, this is Port Authority, this is a negotiated space to begin with. And it should continue to be a space included, regardless where that space is. It doesn't have to be this specific space.
And if the group needs to be moved, they need at least 30 days. If they know they have a year, they'll add some gravel, or the Port Authority might contribute some gravel to the space now as it's needed. That might be included in the letter. So I go back to the vote. If what I just said is okay with everybody, no objections, no abstentions, no voting against. And if that's the case, passes unanimous.
Can I include a good cause eviction? For do dogs count? Do dogs count for a no eviction? I don't think so in New York, but maybe we should.
It has to go to the state legislature.
Yeah, right. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again for including us and being such great advocates.
You're members of the community. We are going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is, and I don't know who's going to lead this. Oh, yes, Senator Hoylman's office is going to talk about, I'm talking about you, you're smiling, how nice. The heliport. I had the pleasure, I've said this to some of you before, of going to Governor's Island, and there's a spa there, and my wife and I, for our anniversary, were there. And we had a good time. That's not the point I'm making. I was sitting there and looking at the helicopter traffic in our harbor, which is, absolutely huge. And as an aside, I was looking at all the smoke that was coming out of the Staten Island ferries, but I guess that's not in our district. But helicopter traffic is huge, and so any movement of those helicopters away from our district would be really very welcome. Natalie, you're on.
Sure. So, hey, everyone. I'm Natalie with Senator Hoylman Siegel's office. Ben is also here from a family member, Simone's office, so we can kind of tag team this one. So, yeah, I can just give an overview, and Ben, you're more than welcome to jump in. I'm just going to give it an overview. We have two bills relating to helicopters. One which we just introduced, one which we passed last year. It's been amended. So I can just give a quick summary of those two bills. Try to answer any questions. I know the senator was hoping to be here to speak more, or someone from our legislative team, but people probably know today is like one of the last days of session, so the legislature still is in session. So I will do my best to answer questions, and if there's stuff I can't answer, I'll make sure to bring it back to our legislative team. And yeah, again, Ben, if you want to introduce yourself and feel free to jump in anytime.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Ben Lowenstein. I'm the CB4 liaison for Assemblymember Simone's office. And yeah, we're supporting these bills on the Assembly side, and yeah, but I'll let Natalie take the lead on this.
Cool. So, so the new bill we introduced, S6962, that bill was just introduced this year. That bill amends the Hudson River Park Act to ban all commercial emergency helicopter flights from Hudson River Park. All completely ban the use of the heliport and require the removal of the heliport building and structure completely by 2028. That bill, it does have a couple of years phase in, so it wouldn't go into effect. The removal wouldn't have to happen until 2028. So that's pretty straightforward. The other bill we have, which did pass the Senate last year, and I think the Assembly, and it was vetoed by the governor. We did reintroduce it this year. That's S6109. That bill also addresses Hudson River Park, but it doesn't quite go as far. It amends the Hudson River Park Act to ban only non-essential helicopter flights in Hudson River Park. So that includes like tourist flights, photography, things like that. It does continue to allow for some flights for construction, for things like construction, infrastructure, health, and safety, research, and news. And this bill also bans tourism flights from city-owned property. So it bans the use of, the city EDC operates on the east side in the Wall Street heliports. So this bill would ban tourism flights from those properties. So this bill is essentially more focusing on banning the tourist flights. The version passed last year contained a private right of action for basically people to take action because of the damage caused by helicopters. This year's version does not contain the private right of action. That is in response to the governor's veto memo. She specifically cited that as one of the reasons that she, as her primary source of opposition. So we removed that. And this bill also does not require the removal of the heliport structures. So that's a quick summary. There's also a helicopter bill that actually passed the Senate today, sponsored by Senator Gonzalez. That is, I'll just give you the bill number, S7216. And that implements a noise tax on non-essential helicopter and seaplane flights in New York City. The tax is $50 per seat ticket or $200 per flight, whichever is greater. And there's some exempted aircrafts which are designated quiet. So that passed the Senate today. So that's a quick overview. Happy to answer any questions or try to provide more clarity.
Thank you very much for that quick review. Sally, please.
Okay, so Natalie, we've had a little back and forth on this already. So if I'm understanding, the new bill is supposed to be easier to swallow, meaning that we won't get rid of the heliport, but we are going to cut down on the tourism and the more frivolous uses of it, which should make it more digestible to the governor and anybody else that has to sign on. Is that correct? We're just trying to, he's trying to write a bill that will be easier to get through by not ripping out the heliport and just reducing the traffic.
So it's like a little bit complicated because these two bills are kind of similar. The new bill, the bill we introduced this year that takes out the heliport structure. So that's the new bill. It's just that's the kind of most extreme, I would say. It bans all helicopter. You take out the heliport structure. I think so that's a new one. We've also introduced the old one in a form that we hope will be more palatable to the governor, which is taking out the private right of action. And as you said, that bill doesn't go as far. It doesn't require the removal of the structure. It allows for, more, like, I guess, essential uses for the heliport.
So, well, if the first bill goes where they get rid of the heliport, you don't need the second bill, right?
Yes, yes. Although the second bill also does address the city-owned, the EDC-owned sites, and bans tourism flights from those sites. And the bill, you know, getting rid of the heliport it only addresses Hudson River Park. It doesn't address the EDC site.
1609 addresses the east side, and 6962 does not.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, the bills are going to run on a parallel track. I mean, yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
They're going to run on a parallel track. I mean, you want them both, or eventually you might not need them both. The other thing I understand is that what you really need now is legislative support in both the Senate and the Assembly. Correct? He needs co-sponsors. Okay. So
yeah. Oh, go ahead. I would just say to that, you know, I definitely think that's helpful. I think that's always helpful. Really, yeah, our focus now is kind of on building the support in the legislature. You know, I do think we've seen in the Senate there is pretty widespread support, at least for the bill that we were able to pass last year, which just banned tourism flights. So, you know, we do think the Senate's on board. The bill does need support from the Assembly and the governor, and it was vetoed by the governor. So, but you know, I say like support memos, things like that, to help make sure it moves. And also, I would just say, you know, the legislative session is ending today, so we don't foresee these bills moving this year. That's going to be a project to push again next year. But yes, the support memos and things like that are always helpful, I would say.
okay, so as you well know, there's probably not one person on this committee that doesn't want to say goodbye to helicopters. So now knowing all of this, what do you see that we can do to help push this forward?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, I think generally, I don't know if community, I mean, probably letters. I mean, I think, I'm not sure if the community board has written to the, you know, the governor and anything like that before, or if that's even in the scope of what you would do. But, you know, I imagine voicing any support to the governor and to other senators. And I don't want to speak for the Assembly, but I imagine that would be helpful. But that's something I can also like go back to our legislative team and just confirm, you know, who would be the best for what course of action would be the best for the community board to take, and like who exactly would be best to write to.
And when? If the legislative session is over and if these two bills are going to be presented next year, but they will be different, or we don't know they'll be the same, then can we be writing? Should we, Sally, you have to chime in on this. Should we be writing a letter now, or should we wait until that happens? And so your feedback, Natalie, would be very helpful, and your reaction to what I said, Sally, would also be helpful.
From what I understand, yeah, nothing's happening tomorrow or this year, but it's an ongoing process, and the pressure should be kept. This is the way, Natalie, correct me if I'm wrong. We keep on the pressure with whatever we can do. I'll be doing things with my other groups outside of this committee that I know that we can do, and our plan would be to just keep doing what we keep the pressure on. You know, all year, because it's not happening tomorrow. So Natalie, is that the right approach?
Yeah, I think so. And I'll definitely go back and confirm that and let you all know.
Lowell.
Thank you for these bills. They are both useful, although I like the one that just amends the Hudson River Park Act to ban helicopters, full stop, better. On the other bill, it bans use and it bans tourist use. But the majority of the flights out of the heliport in the park are, for lack of a better phrase, commuter flights. They are either going to one of the airports, or they're, you know, going out to the Hamptons for the summer. You know, the flights increase. Are those type of commuter flights defined as non-essential in the bill?
So I can tell you the bill, I can tell you what it permits. It doesn't sound like it permits those kind of commuter flights, but again, I can confirm this. So it would permit flights for the use of heavy lift operations supporting construction or infrastructure maintenance, law enforcement, emergency and disaster response, provision of medical services, news/research flights, and certain routes approved by the FAA/DOT. So that does not sound like commuter flights are included in that, but I can confirm.
I can see that last one being a huge loophole to allow Blade to continue to operate between the West Side Heliport and Newark and JFK. I don't know what it does about the Hamptons, but I could see them allowing the flights to the airports. And for the majority of the year, that is most of Blade's business. The Hampton stuff is just over the summer. And to Sally's point, because helicopter traffic is going to increase for the next 3 months, I think we should write a letter now or maybe next month so we can complain about the increased noise because of the Hamptons traffic. Because that's the other thing that Blade spends a lot of their advertising budget on is, avoid the Long Island Expressway and go to your summer home and pollute the air and, live in your summer home and not give a shit about the rest of us. So Marty, I would like to suggest we either do it this month or wait next month and we can really, complain about it when the flights increase. But I would like to see the senator and the assembly member make sure that the bill is tight enough to ban those commuter type flights.
So at least it sounds like we need to wait for some feedback from Natalie. And I don't have a particular position, Lowell, although it sounds like next month is more logical than right now, but I'll take your input.
I'm okay waiting till next month. I mean, we could probably, if we put it on the agenda in advance, you'll get more people showing up to complain about it too, once the noise picks up.
Well, it was on this agenda though.
Well,
maybe not in advance.
Well,
enough.
maybe not. Maybe we need to, spread the word a little bit further. We should get the people from Stop the Chop to come in and do a presentation about what they think about the bill. And maybe we could use that as the basis for a letter.
Sounds good. Thank you all. Brad.
Yes, to be clear, I'm not against the helipad. I think I've always stated that. I am against the commercial use of it. So two things, and that's why I like the amended bill. One, the park gets rent, and that's always been their statement. We need the money. So if this bill goes through, who's paying the rent? Who's maintaining that site? Because we feel there's some dangerous conditions there as it is now. And so that's my question. Do they take over the lease? Is there a new lease? Who would hold it? How does the park get funded on that area? And then, Lowell, you know what I'm going to say. When you guys say helicopters, does this distinguish against drone use? Because in the future, we're going to be drones, and it's probably going to go on where ships used to sit. So I always ask this question, and I think we should be planning for that. I think it's two separate issues, but mainly the first one, if it's going to go through and it's going to be for news and for safety and for police, who's maintaining that and who pays for that for the Hudson River Park Trust?
Marty, can I jump in there?
Please.
The trust position has always been neutral about the heliport. They like the funding that comes in, but they've never taken a position, yay or nay, because they know the community is against it. If it's only going to be governmental type uses or construction uses, then yeah, the state and the city should be kicking in to make up for that lost revenue. But if the heliport were closed entirely, it would just become part of the park, and then we would get a design charrette and whatever we want in that part of the park, and then it would become the trust's problem. But to operate the heliport, you're right, Brad, somebody's got to pay for that. So that should be added to the bills to the bill that is going to allow some use that the state's going to have to pay for the upkeep of that heliport as well.
Yes, exactly. Because I think what it seems like, and Brad's pretty smart legislator, that's why he changed it. And he thinks that's the best he can do now to get that through. So I agree that language has to be added.
Thanks for flagging that. I'll bring that back because that's a really good point.
So I think if I'm not mistaken, the way we're going to leave that for this month, we're going to put it on the agenda for next month. We're going to have the updates, and I think the committee is going to want to write a preliminary letter next month supporting the writing of the reintroduction of these bills, and that we are going to have to put it on our agenda sometime in the fall or spring of 24 to reinforce our support for those letters as it's moving through legislation. Does that sound right?
Marty, I just want to make one other point. You know, I keep saying drone, but if these become electric helicopters or electric drones, the noise goes away, the pollution goes away. So I would like to know what the legislators' thought is on that, because it is an asset if it can be green. And I'm just wondering, you know, does this take it off the table? And I just think it needs to be discussed.
I can't imagine all the noise goes away, even if it's electric.
Brad, I think we have to delay that conversation because I'm going to take the opposite point and say a heliport does not belong in a park, full stop. Whether it's green, you know, or it's contributing to the orange sky we've had for the last 2 days, a heliport does not belong in a park.
But it's the commercial part of the park. And we could say that for everything else along the park that's there. We've got a car club in the park. So, you know, we can't be unrealistic. This park needs to fund itself. So I'm just bringing up, I'm all for non-commercial 100%, but I just think we need to keep a more open mind and a more futuristic look at this piece of property.
Brad, helicopters wouldn't be as much of a problem as they are if they didn't make so much noise.
But Marty, the technology is changing and it's not going to be calling a helicopter anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, it's not. We can't fight that out here, but it ain't going to be noise free. So going back to the letters, we're coming back next month. We're going to talk about these 2 bills, or is it 3 bills? The noise tax, you didn't talk about it a whole lot. We're going to talk about these 3 bills and put that in whatever we learn about them in a letter, and then we're going to have to write another letter next year. Does that sound correct? Is there any disagreement with what I just said?
Well, Marty, why don't we just, I know Josephine has her hand up and Alan has his hand up in the public. So why don't we start the comments and then we can maybe, don't you think, maybe, and then decide.
Josephine, I am so sorry. I didn't see your hand and I didn't see Alan's hand either. So let's hear both of you. And if you'd bring Alan over, that would be fabulous.
No worries. Natalie, I just have a question on the first bill. If the heliport is removed, where do the emergency flights go? Like, just what's the nearest in case there was, God forbid, some sort of disaster? What happens?
I am not sure. I don't know if anyone else on this call knows exactly how that would be handled. If not, I will ask about that as well and, you know, see if we can figure that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that one either.
I'm going to ask Alan to speak, and then if Brad still has his hand up, then him. Alan's got to be brought over, Janine.
I'm sorry, I brought him over. Alan, can you please accept?
There you go. As soon as you know you can be heard, Alan, please start talking.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Glad to see you all and glad that we're talking about helicopters again. It's been a while and thank you, Natalie and Ben, for your legislative work. A complication, a lot of issues, a lot of stories. I'll try to make it brief. I would first say that I agree with Lowell 100% on the heliport. Since it was there before the act, that's how we got stuck with it. There's no commercial place for it in the Hudson River Park Act. When you speak about the car situation, that pier is a designated commercial use pier, 50-50, if we recall. But I think at this point, maybe we should try to work with what happened previously in the settlement in 2008 to try to get a little bit better working relationship with the heliport until we can get it out of the park altogether. There were certain stipulations that they agreed to do that they haven't been doing, and that's how they come in and go out of the heliport. They were supposed to put barriers up to hold down the noise, and I think we should try to get the park, the trust back in to do something in terms of studying the pollution that is being created. Having gone through what we did the last couple of days, the helicopters have been dumping pollution across the park, not just in the heliport, but as they come over the river, the Great Lawn, where parents are there with their kids picnicking, over the Frying Pan, and I'm sure up and down the river as well. They were supposed to come up mid-river. Most of these helicopters, from my experience, that I spend a lot of time in the heliport, they come very close to the walkways. If you're not careful, you're going to get sprayed as they hit the landing. So I think there's things we can look at. I think the trust needs to come back in and determine how are they monitoring the operation itself of the heliport. There was supposed to be a flag person directing traffic as cars are coming in from the highway. My experience is oftentimes there's no flagman there. Cars just come in. Oftentimes they're blocking the bikeway. So there are a number of issues that we can maybe try to get to at least ameliorate some of the problems that people are experiencing in the park. Right now, there is no tourist activity that was banned several years ago. So the tourism is really relegated to city-run helicopters. So I think, as Sally pointed out, we need to try to get some campaign going, try to get as many of the upstate legislatures on board. I believe the last vote on the bills that were there before were pretty much down party line. The Democrats voted for it, the Republicans voted against it. It wouldn't hurt to try to get some of these Republicans on board when we finally do some campaigning. Again, the heliport is not supposed to be there as part of a park. They did have a stipulation that they could put a barge out in the river for emergency purposes. I think that's something that really should be looked at, and how emergency vehicles go in and out of the park. That's something that they could figure out if that happens. Financially, I think the park gets about $1.5 million a year in rent, which is a considerable sum, but I don't think it's going to bankrupt the trust if they don't get it. So I don't see that as a problem. And as Lo mentioned, the trust has never really made an issue of the financial imperative of keeping the heliport there. So a lot of issues going on, but I think at some point maybe the committee wants to get the trust back in and really have a hard discussion about how they want to monitor. They're the managers of the park. They manage a whole slew of commercial enterprises up and down the park. I think they need to take a little harder look at what's going on, how things are being run. And I think they owe it to the public to do a thorough air quality study over the course of some time to see how it's affecting people as they walk by, as they stand by, and also the employees. You have the composting area just to the north of the heliport. You have people working in there. They're growing vegetables that they're giving to people to eat, where the helicopters are dumping, they're dumping right over the growing area. So a lot of issues, you guys are doing a wonderful job. The committee has always been on top of the trust. I think it's maybe a good idea to see.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
What Alan's comments, so there are a lot of them, what it raises in my mind is, do we want to hear from the trust about the helicopters before we write a letter? They, after all, will, I mean, Lowell said that they've tried to take a neutral position, but maybe this is the time for them to talk about, I don't know much about the 2008 stipulations, but I do know that I don't see barriers, noise barriers there. And if there were stipulations that weren't fulfilled, somebody should tell me more about it than I now know. So before Alan's,
Marty, I'll send you a copy of it tonight.
thank you. Brad, you have something else to say, Brad? He just took his hand down. I think that means no.
I have a question, Marty. I'm sorry. I want to ask
Go for
Natalie. So I'm just curious what Senator Hoylman's thoughts are on. So if S6109 was introduced and was vetoed, right? I'm curious why the stricter law bill.
I think really what we're just doing is, trying to double down and just, I don't know, put it out there and, see what we can get done. So, yeah, I think, if there's, I think, we want to put out the goal of what we want. And yeah, I think, that's why we introduced it. But yeah, I'm also happy to talk to the legislative team a little more about that.
Is that throw as many bills against the wall and see which one sticks?
Potentially, yeah. Although again,
I mean, the reason why it just seems very extreme, just considering the one that we're trying to work towards.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know, I'm sure there's some legislative thoughts on, strategy with that. I was just curious if you could share or, and any insight about, so the governor vetoed it. Have there been any talks with her since on, massaging, 6109 that where she will sign it?
Yeah, so we did remove the private right of action portion of that
Yeah, that's
bill.
what you said was a sticking point, right?
That was in her veto memo, the primary source of opposition. So yeah, we're making a good faith effort to try to address her concerns, and we're definitely going to be, doing everything to get them to her in a form she can get behind. So I think that was like a major step we took to try to make it, something that she could agree to.
And I just want to reiterate what Brad said. I don't want to put anything in Brad's mouth, but what Josephine said that about emergency, no emergency, seems a little extra, there's no emergency. But that's, so I'm guessing you guys are concentrating on 6109. I'm guessing, I don't know, right? Or
again, I'm not on the legislative side, so I don't really want to speak to our, prioritization of bills. I think we're pushing both of them. But I do think 6109, we have seen that we can get support of it in the
some sort of traction. Yeah. Okay, because then
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, maybe, I think Alan, you mentioned something about having like a barge or something for emergency flights. So it sounds like maybe this is something that's been considered before in terms of how emergencies would be addressed.
That was, yeah, that was in part of the settlement. They were supposed to do that.
Gotcha.
But
Thanks,
I would also like to double up on what Lowell mentioned. This commuter thing really needs to be addressed. That's a big hole in the wall, a big hole in the gap. I even recall at one point that whether it was the previous mayor or somebody mentioned when there was talk about closing down the heliport, that they considered the heliport and the helicopter as part of the traffic infrastructure of the city. So it needs to be addressed, I think.
So we have to gather information between now and next month. I'm going to go to Lowell and then to Brad.
While we're gathering information in response to Leslie and the other, who was the other, Josephine was the other person who commented on it. Sorry, Josephine. Can we get information maybe from FDNY or whoever would be involved? How many times that West Side Heliport has been used in the last year, for example, for some kind of emergency use? Because I think you're going to be surprised that the number is something you can count on one hand. But I'd like to get that confirmed by someone who knows for sure. I'm not sure if we can get that from, FDNY EMS or NYPD or whoever, or Natalie, maybe your office has the ability to get that information for us before next month.
And Natalie, you said for 6109 news helicopters are allowed, correct?
Yeah, yes.
That's important. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we should know how many. I mean, the majority of the flights, Alan is the one who's watched this for hours at a time, so he'd be able to, back me up. But I think the majority of the flights in and out of that heliport are the commercial blade flights.
Brad? Thank you, Lowell.
You wear a seatbelt 90% of the time. You get an accident once in 20 years and you need it. I could not consciously say that we should take away an emergency area for the one time when we have a serious emergency. So I am totally comfortable with emergency traffic there, news traffic there. I think we all don't want the commercial part of it. And for us not to say we're going to put a barge there, an emergency happens right now. They need a place to go. So I wouldn't think it's prudent to take something away, but I think bringing down the traffic's important. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Alan, short one.
Yeah, well, I think you do need an area. You do need to keep it open for emergency services. 6-7 years I'm working that area as a volunteer several times a week sometimes. The other day I saw a NYPD helicopter. Prior to that, I saw another NYPD helicopter. I think they were doing training, landing, and takeoff. And I did notice one of these hospital transport. So I would say in the 7 years I've seen 4, maybe 5, but still that's important to have there. So you do need an emergency accessible use, but they could do that again with the barge that actually that was part of the settlement. They were supposed to move out onto the barge, get rid of everything else, and keep that as emergency and other use, and figure out how they would get in and out and across the lanes.
Those numbers are anecdotal. It would be much better to have some real statistics.
Yeah, and some you could probably request those landings from the heliport, from their office here. I would think that they're supposed to keep track of what comes in and out of what lands and what takes off from the heliport, but that would be something you'd have to ask the trust about.
I think we're going to leave the conversation as we just heard it. We're going to come back to this next month. Presumably, we're going to have some more information. And Leslie, you and I will have to talk about what the best way to get some of this information is going to be. I'm hoping that the legislators, your office, Natalie, might be able to get us some of this data. We're not really a data gathering organization, although we have done that. Am I correct? Is that the way we're leaving it? Okay. Thank you. This is a helpful conversation. It's something that's in our backyard, and we need to control it if we can. But we're only advisory, right? We are at the point in this meeting where we would do old and new business. I want to mention that Leslie and I have seen Katie Savage's email talking about air monitors in our district. What a great time to be talking about air monitors for an environmental committee. I don't think we can write a letter to Canada telling them to put out the fires, although I'd like to. Do you have anything to say about that, Leslie? She mentioned that the nearest air monitor is really not in our district, and that I just thought it worthwhile bringing it to you. We are at old and new business.
I did. She sent something that I think the nearest, she was surprised the nearest air quality monitor was something on Broadway. I mean, that's the furthest west it went. And that it should be probably closer to the traffic and the cruise ship, yeah, and the tunnels. I sent out an email following up on that for inquiry. But I think also we are going to onboard new members. I think they are invited to kind of see all the different, that we have a lot of new members, as Jeffrey said in the full board last night. I think we have 9, probably 10. And they will be, I guess, looking at all the different committees and seeing where they would be the best fit. But I guess leading up to that, and we'll also discuss it when they get onboarded as well. If anyone, we always have this open. If anyone has anything they want to see in the new meetings, if there is a topic that we should address, we can get our Janine and our district office on it to bring in some speakers. I know Sally was interested in bioswales, and we are working on that. But if there's anything else, please, mention it now or email us, and we will definitely address it. Brad.
On the East River, I think we've all saw the new pool that they're going to put in that sits in the East River, and it filters it, and it's a big kind of like cross. Love to talk to those guys and see if they would like to do something on our river. I know I sent it over to Marty, but maybe that's something we could put on the agenda. And I also would like to talk if we can get, because I know we talked about the commercial side of the park, some companies that are interested in growing vertical, growing and having like Brooklyn Gardens, where it's a commercial viable farm. And I think, I'd like to hear some proposals based on that. I just think we're wasting all this waterfront that we could be using. And maybe those are 2 items we could add to the agenda.
What's the second item?
Vertical farming, vertical city farming, like they have, they're using warehouses, Marty, and they're growing, or, lettuce and tomatoes. They have them in Brooklyn, and they're going up all over the world. And, why not use the West Side for that, on Parks, commercial side of things that we need.
That would be something for Hudson River Park.
Right, exactly. Or if there's some place in our district that they think it could be viable. We're building a movie studio. I know Jeffrey's very interested in that, and that's kind of past us. But you have that whole backside of that pier that's not being used. And maybe it could turn into a big case study for a green farming center with state money and city money to create an industry behind there. We've got that whole pier that needs work. Maybe there's a way to get that done.
You're talking about Pier 92.
Right, because if you're in Iowa, you're getting federal dollars for subsidizing farming.
Thank you.
Well, why can't we get some of that money and put it towards that pier? So I'm just trying to come up with some ideas, at that level.
Thanks, Brad. Matt.
Yeah, so just wanted to bring to everyone's attention today, because I know it's been a topic among committee members here about composting, and the city council approved a bill that would mandate citywide composting beginning in the outer boroughs. I guess, it still has to be voted on by the mayor, but the city council apparently has a super majority in support, so they could override that veto. But it would, I think the plan is to start the mandatory composting in Manhattan in October 2024. There's a New York Times article out that came out this afternoon. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up just so everyone's aware that they have.
Matt, I was impressed by that bill, in that the only difference from what sanitation is already planning to do is that the bill mandates it, as opposed to letting sanitation go through its voluntary setup.
Yeah. Yep.
It doesn't
seems to be the difference.
It doesn't change the ridiculously long away October date.
That's right. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure folks were aware of that.
So we have a list of things that we are looking at, some of which is out of our hands. We had parks tonight. We still have shore power that we haven't heard anything about in a while. We haven't heard anything from the High Line recently. Pier 94, we've talked about it, and I don't know if we're going to wind up talking. That pisses us all off, I guess. We had a helicopter conversation tonight, and will next month. Somebody mentioned bioswales tonight, and that may be something we want to start paying some more attention to. Composting, and we certainly should be being sure that it gets put in place. I hope the mayor signs that. And then other innovative things that Brad was trying to bring up, like a pool and virtual farming. Can anybody think of another issue that should be on this list of stuff that we're looking at? If not, we should probably adjourn and go home.
I have two things to follow. I just want to follow up on Brad's point. Brad, Hudson River Park will have some spaces, maybe I shouldn't say plural, that will be up for design, kind of blank slates. And when that process comes up, that's when I think we can push. I wouldn't even say extreme ideas. I think like new ways, think out of the box ideas. And that may be a good place for some of the things you said. I think we should also, I was talking to Jeffrey about this, we should kind of re-engage with Hudson River Park Trust about opening up the tow pound task force again, which was closed literally I think it was a meeting and COVID struck and everyone stopped about how to redesign the tow pound space, as Lowell well knows. So hopefully that can get, we can address that again and maybe get that moving, because that's a blank slate also. So I don't think some of these ideas are really far-fetched when it's kind of like I said, a blank canvas that we can, with community input, kind of form or put our suggestions in. The second thing is, and Marty just touched upon it with shore power. One of the things, if you guys remember from the capstone group, was the lack of use from not just the Manhattan Cruise Terminal, but the north part of it, the onboarding, that's all been closed since 9/11 pretty much. And it's really no access or very, very limited access to the waterfront. And talking to Jesse Bodine today, he suggested that we make a formal request to EDC for a tour of that section. So we will, Ginny and I'll talk to you about that tomorrow through an email. But once we do that, hopefully they will, they give tours of security areas all the time. We just have to put it on the calendar, and then hopefully we can get WPE down there. So then we can actually see what is in play in that area and what are the barriers, literal and not. to kind of making that space a good community access space again. So those are the only two things that I wanted to update on. And by the way, I apologize. Evidently, the whole softball team came over tonight. So I apologize for that if there's any noise or stuff in the background.
Nope, no problem with that. I haven't heard it. Ladies and gentlemen, anything else? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Alice, thank you. And I'm not even going to ask for a second. You're being so quiet tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the weekend. Wear your masks as long as this smoke is here. And see you soon.
Thank
Good night.
Night, everyone.
Bye, guys.
you.
Thank you.